So now everybody should be hearing our voices. Hi, Owen.
Both our voices this time?
Yeah,
Hi, Troy.
I hope that people can hear us. I hope I've done the thing. Looks like we've got Ren's here, Jacob's here. We have got people watching on the YouTubes and people watching on the Facebooks. Let me know if you can hear our voices as I wait for the delay to go away.
Well, the delay never goes away. We just catch up to it.
Truth. Yeah, but it's always ahead of us. Always 1 or 2 or 3 steps ahead.
I'm reminded of the scene from Spaceballs where they put in the video cassette release of the movie that is coming out at the same time as the movie.
Thomas Johnson says yes before I could even type the question. So we're just going to presume that everybody can hear us, and we're going to have a program, and that program shall be named ThursdAGE with Owen KC Stephens, the nicest guy in the biz, and me, disembodied Troy, the sort of okay guy, not the nicest maybe.
The most disembodied person in the biz?
Hey, I'll own that. That is for sure. I'll own that. Howdy, Owen. So, we had we missed a couple episodes. One, I threw my back out and could only lay down. So, but I had to lay down in sort of like a Z formation, and it just doesn't really lend itself well to a live stream. How about and then so you went to take care of some kind of family stuff, and but now here we are, and would you believe it, folks? And Thomas Johnson says yes, but I don't know that I'm seeing. Can everybody hear me? How about you, Ren, Jacob? I worry. You know how I worry.
I do know how you worry.
I heard that.
Yeah, that was us coming through on the YouTube.
All right, well then there we go. Thank you, Duke. Duke, you made it almost on time. You know what? You're pretty much on time. We've only been streaming for a couple minutes, so you have missed very little outside of saying we were gone for a couple weeks, but now we're back, and we spent. I don't know, and you can hear Owen and myself. Good, thank you so much. Here's something that I don't know if anybody. I mean, it sounds like a tall tale. It may sound like I'm stretching the truth. I may be bragging a little, but I think we just planned a total of was it 5 or 6 shows?
5 or 6 shows.
Yeah. One after the other, and they're solid. So we've got some real big plans. We've also talked about some interactive fun stuff that we want to introduce, but more on that another time. Owen, how are you?
I'm okay. It's always a little interesting when I'm in a professional setting and someone asks me how I'm doing.
Right.
I'm reminded of a friend of my grandmother's who, whenever you asked her, how are you doing? She would say, do you really want to know? And if you said, yeah, I really want to know, she'd tell you. And after about one of those, you'd generally go, no, I'm just being polite. So, we missed 2 weeks. So you can guess that things are better now than they have been for a few weeks.
Yeah. Absolutely. I do love that you would consider this a professional environment.
It's a professional environment if some other company's name is involved, right? This is Green Ronin Publishing presents ThursdAGE with Owen KC Stephens. So
I'm just going to
add. What I do and say here reflects back on the fine folks at Green Ronin, who I've known for more than 20 years and who have been nice to me that entire time. And who I would never, ever, ever want to make their lives more difficult. So.
Absolutely. But I'm just saying, we are going to now change the title of the program, ThursdAGE, a professional live stream. I like that.
I think we're just fine with an age live stream, right? They say under promise and over deliver.
Oh,
so
sure.
It's live and it's streaming, which we couldn't even manage that for the past 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But the other thing too is we do over deliver in under promising. No, wait, we under promise and over. We just achieve at not achieving, which I like. A positive negative. Ren says, very excited to hear good stuff coming. Thank you. Ren says, we always have cool stuff. I feel like we always have cool stuff too. What is today? What have we carved out of the world to sort of explore?
So we were talking for a bit about cities and fights in cities, and I actually got one question. I think we did 2 shows on it, and I got one question that someone sent me, so I want to cover it, and that
good.
may or may not take an entire show.
Oh, nice.
So we're still dealing with cities because someone asked a question. If you want us to tackle some other topic, all you got to do is drop me a line or drop Troy a line at Let's Play at Green Ronin.
Yep.
We are hungry to know what it is you want to know. So we put a stupid amount of weight on people actually asking us questions.
That's right. A whole program potentially.
Right. So this whole program is based on this very simple question. If you are running a game in a city and you want to use resources that are adventures, pre-written adventures that aren't set in a city, how do you do that? And that can be a tricky question, right? Because it is not unusual for adventures to be based on cave systems or ancient ruins or, being deep out in the woods or some enemy giant's castle. There's this whole list of tropes. Or a crashed spaceship in the mountains, right? There's a whole list of tropes that have shown up in fantasy adventure gaming that aren't designed to be run in a city. But when you're a GM, we all have stuff come up. We only have so much time. We only have so much brain space. And it is not fun to spend, 12 hours in a week preparing to run a game session that's only going to be 6 hours. Even if you enjoy being a GM, I personally don't ever like to put anywhere near as much time in prep as I'm going to get out of the gaming experience. So a lot of people like to lean on pre-written adventures. I think that's a great idea. I do it all the time myself. I frequently lift things from those pre-written adventures, or I reskin them. I file the serial numbers off and present them in a different format. And I think that is a great way that we can take content that was not originally designed to be in a city and put it in a city. And so to discuss this, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about some fantasy age adventures that already exist that are available on PDF. They're fantasy age encounters. They're about 4 pages. They're designed for like 1 night's worth of entertainment. You can buy them now on greenronin.com. But we have Menace from the Mines, Drive for Justice, and Ancient Shadows. And of these, there's one, Drive for Justice, that can easily be adapted to a city because it's about a sheriff that's trying to hire you for help to save a knight's good name. And it is specifically designed for a small town environment, right? But none of that is crucial to the plot line. And even if there are things like, cattle that are missing or whatever, those are elements that you can easily say are just outside town. Even city-based adventures can leave the city to go to the outlying lands.
Folks that are watching, real quick, Owen, I just want to dive in and say you will find links in chat to those. That PDF only $2.95.
Great. So it is easy to see how you would adapt that one, right? And one of the ways I mention it specifically because one of the answers to how do I take things that aren't designed to be in a city and put them in a city, if you're just perusing adventures for something to run, start by thinking what can be adapted easily. If it's in a town, or even if it's on a ship, right? Those are narrow, confined public spaces. Someone asked, is this ThursdAGE? Yes, this is ThursdAGE.
It's ThursdAGE.
This is the Age live stream, which we just haven't gotten to in a bit. You are in the right place. Congratulations. So look for things that will be adapted easily. Another thing that you can do when you are setting up your city is try to set up your city with a lot of hooks in it that you can easily connect to classic tropes. So if you look at like Absalom from Galarian, I wrote the original guide to Absalom. It has a number of different neighborhoods, and those neighborhoods have different setups. So There's a big dock area, so if you had a sea monster-like plot, you could apply that to the docks or the ports. It's got a flooded section of town, so it's easy to put aquatic monsters there. It has an area that has a lot of parks and a giant tree, and druids and rangers hang out there, so it's easy to take nature-based stuff and set it there. Look at what sorts of things tend to be used in adventures, and not only does that make it easy for your adventure to be moved to a city, but it can make the city seem more interesting. New York City has Central Park, which is this mile-long, like half-mile wide park in the middle of the city. That is prime real estate, but they keep it as a park. If you decide that your city has an enormous park, or it's built right up against a wood, or it has and it might have a section of the city that collapsed, and that section of the city is in ruins, or fell into the ocean, or there are caves. You can also look at what was here before the city came along. A lot of adventures take place with ruins or caves or caverns. And there are a lot of real world examples. You can look at Seattle, for example, or the catacombs of Paris, where cities have been built on top of older things that you can tell people just in a offhand remark early on when you're sitting in the city, oh, and it's famous for being built on a bunch of ruins that came before. And you don't even have to go into details there. And that means that if later you're coming along and you're like, okay, here's an adventure that's set in a mine, you can say, hey, there used to be mines under the city, but they were all mined out, so no one goes down there anymore. So now we've got abandoned mines. So there's lots of cool stuff you can do that if you're trying to craft your own adventure. If you want to have the mine shafts be used as a tunnel system so people can get around the city, or there's a cult down there that uses the old mines as a hidden place. But that also means that if you come along to an adventure that uses mines, and it is probably no shock that Menace from the Mines, the adventure that I was mentioning earlier, involves mine shafts. So if you said that there is this old stuff beneath the city, then you can either say that there are actual mine shafts under there, or you can change it from mines to there's abandoned part of the town, or a part of town that collapsed, or there was originally a giant, super powerful psychic bunny warren that ran the place before they were all killed off by fire elemental firefoxes, and you built over their old crystal psychic warrens, and then you've got that as a place that you can draw stuff up from.
I do have a quick question. So the Menace of the Mimes, like, are they just sort of emoting at you, or like just littering the streets, trapped in invisible boxes and trying to pull invisible ropes? And
M-I-N-E, mines.
Oh, mines.
Not M-I-M-E, mine. Now, you want to write an adventure about the Menace of the Mimes. I think that is totally the sort of thing that the Age Creators Alliance is all set up for you to do.
Damn. Unflappable, this man, unflappable.
There's in fact, they did a crossover of the classic Watchmen sequel comics with DC Universe that had a character who was the mime, who could point a finger at people and pull the trigger, and there would actually be a gunshot effect. So
that's great.
Actual mimes as menaces is a area rife with possibility. The other thing that you can do when you're trying to adapt things to mines is anytime something talks about a small town, right? Well, you're not talking about a small town, you're talking about a city. But that's where it can be really useful to have neighborhoods. If your city has a number of different regions, different neighborhoods, they can have very different flavors. So if the city says, hey, you all are supposed to be showing up at the Digger's Delight Inn, a once-thriving establishment that's the last refuge, the only survivors of a series of monster attacks, rather than having that be in a town that is isolated, you just say that's a section of the city that people don't go to very often. The people there are considered to be of low class and unimportant, and frequently bigotry can come in. So people like, because they're low class, they're considered to be lazy and probably drunkards and probably liars, and no one takes them seriously. And by putting that there, not only do you have the opportunity to say, look, these people aren't bad people, that's just the culture is painting them in a certain light. It also means that if they've got a problem, the PCs can come along and they can say, look, we've mentioned this, we've talked about this to the sheriff, and no one will listen to us. There's something down in the old mine shafts or psychic crystal warrens or the old orc cathedral that used to be built underground, whatever it is, down there's a problem. And so when the PCs get caught out in the raining in a part of town they would never be caught dead in normally, so they go into this Digger's Delight, you can rename it if you want, and run into the problems. Rather than being lost survivors of the town, they're the only people that are still living in this neighborhood. And there's some great stories about towns and cities sort of emptying out and people not trusting them and abandoning them. Salem's Lot comes to mind from Stephen King, and there's a lot of, he actually did a Jerusalem's Lot short story, which just sort of sets up the backstory of Salem's Lot. But you can set these up as, it's just a dilapidated part of town. You initially tell people, it's considered run down. And then later you have the option of putting an adventure there that will explain why people are abandoning it.
I love it. I'm taking a look at these two pieces here. I'm gonna put them up on a screen. If there's something in there you want to show, I'll have them in just a bit. But would you do me a favor and just do a quick recap of what we're talking about, kind of the subject matter? Yeah. So
we're just talking about, we got a question, which was, how do I take adventures, pre-written adventures that are not designed to be set in a city, and adapt them to put them in a city environment? If I'm someone that wants to run adventures in a city, but I don't have time to write everything from scratch, how do I take things that weren't designed for a city and move them into a city? And so I'm talking about, there are a couple of different ways to do it. And one important one is to try and set up your city with different regions so it's easy to adapt them. And that is pretty much what I've covered so far. And we're going over some actual short encounters that are available on the Green Ronin website as examples of how to do this. And then the other big thing that you can do is take things that have absolutely nothing to do with the city and sort of boil down the key encounters and be ready to move them into a city. There's an adventure that is set up, Children's Crusade, where you've got some kids and they're supposed to be taken someplace, and that is set entirely outside of a city. And I actually ran this as a playtest for the core rulebook that will be coming out later. And so it's sort of an escort quest. And the whole thing assumes that you are leaving a city and going out someplace. So when you boil that down, it is a series of encounters and attacks that occur where you have to protect these children through. And so even though that it says, hey, you're going out into the wilderness and you're tracking 3 or 4 days, whatever, and you've got to get them to this other point, be that another town, or, I don't want to spoil the adventure. There are certainly cities where there are dangerous parts of town where you will need to escort people. And anytime there is something in the adventure that is people, bandits or cultists or whatever, even if they were going to be, these are the bandits of the Sherwood Forest, let us say, Sherwood Forest bandits, instead become the Sherwood Street bandits. You just move them. And if they need something specific, if we specifically have these written up as people that have, they've got bonus stunts that occur in a forest because they can move through underbush and trees, then that becomes a place where instead they are jumping you in a park, or, this particular street is lined with bushes, or you can even move it to any other kind of difficult terrain, right? Maybe they wait for you to take a shortcut through an alley, and that alley is choked with trash and garbage and detritus, and that's where they jump you. It is, generally speaking, if you can divorce your mind from sort of the visuals of the set piece and think about instead of the game mechanical elements, it's easy to see how those can be lifted and put into a different set piece, a different backdrop. And if you've got a series of them, all you have to do is look through the encounters and say, okay, this encounter is supposed to take place in a forest, so I'm going to move that to a park. This one's supposed to set place in a cave, so I'm going to move that to a basement. This one is supposed to take place where a giant bear has moved into the cave and is going to come out and attack people. And then you ask, well, how do I get a bear in town, right? And you can either reskin the bear to be something else. Maybe it's not a bear. Maybe it's an ogre. You just use the same stats, but someone has hired an ogre to come attack the players, and you do it that way. Or you do a little work in advance, right? You can say, hey, here's a section of town that is famed for menageries and selling of exotic animals, and then something can break loose. Or you're on the docks and someone is unloading a bear crate and it breaks and the bear gets loose and attacks people. There's very little that really truly has to be outside a city environment. It is much easier to move things from outside a city to in the city than the other way around. Because if you are dealing with adventures in a city, they frequently assume that you've got access to people and large groups and businesses, and you can get to a number of different places in short order. So, if you've got an adventure that's supposed to be facing off against the Thieves Guild that keeps stealing things from the local townsfolk, that is harder to move out into a total wilderness because there's no one there to steal anything, although you could still turn them into illegal trappers or something. But going the other way can be very straightforward to just say, what are the actual elements that I need and where in the city can I put them?
A question for you. As I'm newish to the Fantasy Age library, so the encounters, how many encounters do we have right now? 1 million?
The GM encounter, we got 4 or 5, something like that, at different levels. Some are starting first through third level. Others go up to 5th through 8th.
I like that. And then, and do those generally have a kind of makeup? Like, are they? I'm pretty familiar with Mutants and Masterminds Danger Zones, and they kind of have a thing that in this same vibe allows you to sort of take a piece, and it's a lighthouse, it's an obelisk, it's a that kind of a thing. Are they all the same as far as kind of format goes, or are they different just depending on the idea?
So they all have roughly the same format. I mean, they are very specifically designed to be just the notes and ideas that you need to run the game, right? So they don't tend to have maps. They're only about 4 pages long.
Yeah.
And they say, you're going to be fighting monsters in a mine. And they're kind of generic in their location, so that it is very easy if you're the sort of people that do like to put out miniatures and have a map. There are tons of maps of caves and mines that's easy to grab if you're the people that do that. On the other hand, you don't have to worry about it if you're more of a Theater of the Mind group, and you're just saying, they're this far away and this is the situation, you set it up. But they specifically go over what the setup is. Frequently, they will give you a series of possible outcomes. The Menace of the Mines has some different options for it's. Here's a stat block for the Menace from the Mines, and then there are some different options for what is the Menace of the Mines, why is it from, which you can, as a GM, you can pick one, or you can see if the players decide it as a thing and run with that. But they're just slightly more than adventure seeds, right? They're not full-blown 32-page adventures, but they're designed that you can pick them up and you go, hey, I want to run something for my group. Here's a core idea. Here's some NPCs. Here's some quick questions that the players might ask. And here are the major stat blocks of things they have to overcome. Drive for Justice is a little interesting because, pardon me, it is specifically looking at a trial. And so it talks a little bit about what you do before the trial and how the trial works and how you can run other trials. So it's designed to sort of giving you all the minimum stuff you need to successfully run that adventure. And then you can build it out if you want to. And I'm not hearing Troy.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm here. Sorry. I was adding a view so that people can kind of see what you're talking about. Because I threw, but just immediately when I threw up, I actually threw up. Immediately when I put the adventure up, I had picked the wrong one. I was drawn to Menace of the Mimes, and for some reason. But let's see.
Well, I kept mentioning it, so
Drive for Justice. There we go. But I just like to kind of show those off, so they kind of they're great art.
Yeah, they're great little PDF products. I've used almost all of them myself, and it's as you see, it says this setup, and then it has a couple of the key points, and then how you handle it and what the resolution looks like. It is also, they are exactly the format that I think a lot of people could have success doing things like this for the Age Creators Alliance.
Yeah, that's why I really wanted to show it off, because it's such a nice, discrete package of information, and you can, if you happen to be a particular kind of fan of, or a nerd, like a lot about fishing villages or a ship, or maybe you were raised In the mountains.
They can also be super useful if you pick up a few of them, even if you are the sort of person that likes to create your own adventures just for your own use and not for publication. It can be super useful to look at them and see how they have the information set up, right? So that you can think about, I need to think about the setup, and I need to think about what kind of questions the players might ask and who they may want to interact with, and what are the key elements of an adventure. And if you pick all those PDFs up and you read through them, it's pretty clearer if you're then thinking to yourself, well, I want to write a new adventure where the players are being hired by a dragon to go slay a princess, right? There's an evil princess who is trying to execute all of dragonkind and destroy their eggs. And there's a dragon that is an important part of the ecology, and it's hiring you to go stop her and put an end to her, because she figures if she can slay all of dragonkind, she'll be able to expand her princessdom empire. And so you can look at, okay, what's the setup? What is causing this series of events? You can talk a little bit about that. Then you've got who are they going to talk to? Who are they going to interact with? And yes, you've got this dragon hiring them, but is the dragon going to do that directly? Or does the dragon have a agent that they work through? Or if this evil princess is well known in a town or even in your city that you're wanting to set this in, are there people that will explain this to you? Especially if, the princess will go to any lengths. And so there have been people that are friends with the dragons that were trying to defend them and got killed off. Then you need the core stat blocks. You need to look at some of the, how do you find the princess? What are the complications? And then potential outcomes. And if you look at those elements in those adventures, you can map out what you want the elements to be for your adventure. And if you run those adventures, you can get a good feel for, is that enough information for your group? Or does your group not need some of these things? Or does your group, if you mention there's a goblin named Bobbin the Talker, and as soon as you mention him, everyone wants to know his entire life story. These can be little starter sets you can use to try and figure out, what are your players going to be drawn to? What are they interested in? But I also like them because they aren't all just you're hired by person A to kill person B, especially the one that's about a trial. I think it's really interesting to have an adventure that is specifically about, hey, there's someone that the local people believe is innocent and forces are arraigned against him, and they want to hire you to try and support the case for his innocence. That's a very different adventure modification than there are wolves in the forest and we need 22 wolf pelts, so go kill wolves until you get 22.
Yeah, I really like that quite a bit, as a matter of fact. I'm gonna flip over to the Menace real quick, just kind of run through it, but that's I love the idea of having a collection of reference stuff that you can modularly, it's really built. I mean, I'm just sitting here kind of reading through this, and it's really very, very interesting. And what a great resource. I'm wondering, in folks that are hanging out with us are accomplished game masters, many of them, and some of them, I've heard it runs the gamut of people who are like, I've wanted to play for a long time, but I haven't been able to get a group together, or I've been running a long, kind of turn group, and or I'll be doing something, let's say at Gen Con that's coming up as part of the freebooter thing. I'm interested in hearing from folks who have utilized tools like this, or even just to curate your own sort of, do you have a table that you kind of figure out, random, I don't know, vegetables that grow in a garden, or just what kind of things do you have that you have either found somewhere, or that you've created, or that you picked up through the Green Ronin store that you kind of use as reference? I'm curious for many reasons, but not the least of which is I want to steal your good ideas.
Yeah, I like having references to draw from. And that's another place where things like the bestiary can be useful. And you can get that as a PDF if you don't want to do it in a print format. But just, frequently when you're trying to flat me with a stat this, I will immediately go to the bestiary and say, hey, here's the closest thing. And I can just reskin this to serve that purpose. But it is also, and I've got my bestiary right next to me, it is also useful to get off the original topic a bit, to look and see how they do things, right? Because the vast majority of things in here have their own special qualities. And so you can look at stuff like, I just flipped open the Man of War entirely at random. And It has
and you vanished.
It has under special qualities the steel weapon stunt. For 2 stunt points, this creature may perform a special version of the disarm stunt. If the disarm is successful, instead of the enemy weapon knocked away, it is absorbed in the man of war and can only be recovered by defeating the creature. So that's neat for a man of war, for a walking, living weapon. But you could also, like if you were being inspired by the movie The Blob, for example. And so I really want to have a sort of blob creature that can shoot tendrils out and suck things into it and draw them along. You can look at how was this done by the professionals who did this book, and I can talk about it that way because I'm not listed here. What were their ideas? What were their mechanical thoughts to be able to make certain specific effects? And you can learn sort of the system behind the system. What have we done as Green Ronin with the rule system to create different kinds of encounters and different kinds of foes and different kinds of issues? And that can be, as simple as favored stunts and as advanced as the fact that there are drowning rules in the merfolk entry. So it's a great way, frequently when I'm stumped for a good idea, for something new and interesting to run for people, one of the things I will do is I will look at my resources, my existing resources in the bestiary and basic rulebook are near the top of that list, and say, what can I build based on just this one part of one thing? And that might be, if I'm looking at the basic rulebook, I might look through the various arcana and think, okay, is there something interesting I can do with one of these spells that none of the players have it, it hasn't come up in the campaign, but the rules for it are right there. And that might be a wizard that has that spell, or I might take some spell and say, okay, this obviously doesn't come up very often. Like if it's a pushing spell, a wind spell to shove people around, what can I do to create an encounter where shoving people around is important? And that will lead to an idea of like, hey, you're facing red caps and spiked boot crampons on the surface of a frozen lake. And there are thin spots on the lake, and they keep trying to push you over into the thin spots, so you'll break through and potentially freeze. And that is a way that you can create new and interesting encounters that work well with the rules, because it's the rules that inspired you to have the encounter, but is more than just, hey, here's another sack of hit points that you can poke at with your sword and hope you roll stunt points against.
I like it. Now you referenced the setting or the encounter from the you mentioned the merfolk. Was that something that's in the basic?
That's in the bestiary.
The bestiary, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was half listening and half wildly typing into the store trying to find it.
I personally love my bestiary, and I especially love having it as a PDF. And if I run with a computer, right? I run as a GM. I'm running with a computer next to me at all times, and so if you're someone who runs with a computer or thinks you'd be comfortable running with a computer, I heartily recommend that you pick up the bestiary as a PDF if you haven't already, because when you're using things from the bestiary, you can open multiple iterations of the bestiary as different tabs on your computer and already have each one preset to a specific monster. So if I know that I'm going to have a fight, again, thumbing through here randomly, I want to have a fight with a Sea Devil, which is a minor threat. So I'm going to have a Sea Devil, and a Sea Devil isn't enough. So on top of that, Shardwood's too high, Soul Harvester's too high. A Thin Man. So I'm going to have a Thin Man pirate and his Sea Devil crew. Those are several pages from each other. And for me, flipping back and forth slows things down. But I could have the Thin Man open on one page as the Thin Man captain of this rundown, ramshackle, haunted ship that is maybe it's a 10-foot wide, 150-foot long ship. So it sort of looks like a slice of a ship. And it is creepily thin, and it's got a big blade in the front so it can sail through things. And then he's got Sea Devil troops that swim around him. Having two different tabs open, one with the Thin Man and one with the Sea Devil, lets me draw up their stats quickly and easily. I got some. Yes, a Thin Mint pirate. No, not a Thin Mint, a Thin Man. Thin mints aren't pirates. Thin mints are very clearly based around seduction, given how everyone reacts to Thin mints. I more than once when I've seen Girl Scouts sell cookies, they're like, we have cookies here for sale. Do you have Thin mints? Yes, I'll take Thin mints. You have other kinds. Give me the thing.
I have to share with you that I think in the family of cookies that are purchased from, in that arrangement, Thin Mints are the grossest.
The grossest?
Yeah, when I buy them, I immediately, in front of the child, I will throw it in the garbage. I would just say, and give me another. And I'll just keep doing it until that.
What always gets me about Thin Mints is that it has a thing on the side that says the number of servings it is. And that's a lie. The number of servings is 2 because there are 2 sleeves in there.
Right.
So one serving is I open the sleeve and then I stop when I realize I have to open another sleeve for more cookies.
Our friend Slit says, I'll eat almost any kind of Girl Scout cookie and I'm not even a stoner. I'm not a stoner either, and I will sit down. I won't. Thin Mints do not make it. Do not make the cut. But Chad says, "You monster." Well, I'm just telling you. You know what I'll do? I'll take all the Thin Mints and then I'll leave them in a package in the hot sun. And then I will go to your house and replace your box of cookies that you've been looking forward to with that melty box of garbage.
You think that you're causing a problem for me, but all you're doing is giving me an excuse to get out a scoop of ice cream.
Oh, truth.
Then I cut the end off the melted Thin Mints and just squeeze them out as Thin Mint sundae topping.
There we go. Well, you know what? Actually, I might have just made you 2 giant cookies.
Yeah, or 2 giant cookies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, I'm very disappointed in all this Thin Mint love in the...
Thin Mints are the ultimate cookies. Yeah. I don't... Thin Mints and Oreos, right, are right up there with... They were created, and there has been no need to change them in 100 years.
They do taste like 100 years of, I don't know. I mean, like
minty goodness.
I will cede the point. People do love them quite a bit. I think maybe it's just because I think of toothpaste when I eat them. They're not my top tier, but I can eat them. I will say that I have been known to eat them if they're all that I have in front of me, or even if they pass by me in any kind of a snacking scenario. That is Owen. Chad Middleton said, "That's Owen. Solving problems other people create."
And that's just being a GM, right?
I don't know. You do it so well. It might be just being a genius. Hey, so I am a big fan of these practical sort of dissections of the resources that we've got and the things that are available in the store. And the tools at our kind of disposal. But I have a question for you. You were talking about the bestiary, and I have 2 questions. First, I'd like to say, is the bestiary and the bestiary, is that the same thing?
So the correct pronunciation is bestiary.
Okay.
And a bestiary is full of beasts. So I am one of the people that calls it a bestiary, even though the correct pronunciation is bestiary.
Gotcha, because I hear bestiary and I think, that sounds suspicious, but it is spelled bestiary.
It sure is.
But I say bestiary as well, so I'll blame you. I'm looking at the in the store. We've got age. We've got a few listings for the bestiary. We were talking about the Fantasy Age bestiary. That's the title. Okay, I'm just making sure. I'm seeing some. I'm looking here for the I see PDFs. Awesome.
Yeah, we have the Fantasy Age. We have the Fantasy Age bestiary as a PDF. I think it's like $17 right around.
And it's sizable.
Oh no, it's a nice book. It's and it's got a lot of cool art in it, and I had nothing to do with creating it. 140 something pages.
That's right. Yeah.
And, as I've said over and over, you can take it and you can reskin any of these. But also on top of having just a stat block, if you actually take the time to read these entries, there's just some beautiful stuff in them. If you look at the ghoul industry, right? You've got ghouls. Okay, it's page 58 for those who want to follow along. And there's a picture of a really creepy looking ghoul, which is not one of the things on the cover. I think I've seen it on the cover of some other book of ours. But it talks about feral ghouls. And they have some modifications to what they're not. And then ghoul kingdoms, vast communities of ghouls with ghoul nobles, and their heroic, elite, and epic level ghouls. Then shape-shifting ghouls. then varied reproduction, and then adventure hooks. And these adventure hooks, and they're a solid paragraph or more. And there are, 3 adventure hooks just for the ghoul. So here with the ghoul, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different subtypes of ghoul. I've got 3 adventure hooks for ghouls. That's all for one moderate threat adventure. So this isn't designed just as here's a stat block and here is the ecology and you got to live with whatever we decided. It gives you a lot of stuff that you can use to build and spread. And again, look at how you can use these for your own games, right? If you don't like the idea of having an undead ghoul running around, but you're looking at the adventure hooks and the local butcher prime cut adventure hook appeals to you, but you don't want a ghoul, you want a psychopath, or you want for them secretly working for a Gainerkin, or there's a Pomori in the background, or whatever. This allows you to mix and match so that you can be inspired by the things in this book and produce stuff that even players that might have read the book or GMs on their own won't see coming.
You know, what's interesting about that, too, is I think you pick an interesting creature that adds a certain spark to the adventure because, as I understand it, ghouls just want to have fun. And so if you add them to your adventure, I mean, why not?
Ghouls just want to have fun. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, all the ghoul puns are there for the taking.
I'm trying to think of any others. That's the only one I can think of. I don't know. Help us out, chat.
We'll not ask chat for ghoul puns. We'll be buried alive.
Do you know what you've done? Let's see. Slit says, I prefer Beast E, Airy. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Brian giving his thumbs up to the Fantasy Age Beast E, Airy, saying that they get loads of use out of it. Phenomenal. I'm actually downloading it right now, but I'm always going to be a little behind. But you know what's interesting about this, Owen, is all of these pieces of the puzzle, all the things that we're talking about, all the resources and the opportunities. Slit says I was trying to be phonetic. I'm bad at it. No, you were great. You have uncovered my new favorite way of saying it, which is Beast E, Airy, because I used to say it Ast E Eerie, and didn't have the same effect. Nobody knew what I was talking about. But we've gone and mapped out a series that we're calling. What are we calling it?
How do I use?
And we are going to. The first topic is going to be, how do I use restraint in my, bad jokes as I'm streaming? No, that's really not it. I know how to do that, and I choose not to. But what do we decide? I can actually pull up the
Fantasy Age Game Masters Kit.
That's right. Fantasy Age Game Masters Kit. Then we've got the Age Companion.
But I really want to hit the Game Masters Kit first, because I think a lot of people just think of it as a GM screen, and not every group uses GM screens. But I think the Fantasy Age Game Masters Kit can actually solve problems that Fantasy Age groups have. They haven't even realized are problems that could be solved. It's that in a great and easy way. So I really want to hit that one. I'm super hyped about that. I don't know if I'll be able to talk about it for an hour, but considering that we can waste 15 minutes on Girl Scout cookie flavors, I have hope that we'll good topic.
Oh no, I think it's going to be a phenomenal topic, and I want to encourage everybody when they join us for the next ThursdAGE to come with some thoughts. We'll pre-prep and get some stuff up so that everyone knows what the topic is, but I'm just very curious about. Everybody's sort of like, what are your homebrew tools or your go-to sort of places that you say, like where you save your kind of tidbits of good ideas to incorporate either extemporaneously or as a compendium of the stuff that you want to incorporate into a future adventure. I just love that stuff. Let's see. Robert says, I think the totality of the collective Western movie industry is beaten dead horses less. Quiet you. That's actually pretty funny. I may use that repeatedly until you want to choke me out. Slit says, I'm sorry about that. Owen, Girl Scout cookie flavors. No, I think that was great. I think we did a good job. I think, honestly, the Girl Scout cookie flavors is an example of, we like to cleanse the palate as we move through and keep you on your toes and, be entertaining. So don't sweat it. Slit also says too much emphasis on the E. So it's airy, which I like. Other things, we've got about 10 minutes left, a little under. As we look to these tools and the things that and actually challenge our community to bring their own to bear and share, what are some things like, Owen, if you were to give out some homework for people to kind of look into that will be rewarded, with fame, fortune, and opportunity, where would you have people kind of look to get their head in the game for the next program? Like, what are some things that they ought to immerse themselves in?
So if we're talking about the GM's kit in the next one, I think one piece of homework everyone can do is to look at the environment that you are gaming in and the space that you have and what the pain points are. And by pain points, I mean not necessarily things that are actually preventing you from gaming, but things that come up that slow down your gaming experience. And I'm specifically talking about Fantasy Age, but some of that could be related to all sorts of stuff. Like, are a whole bunch of you sharing one rule book and you have to pass that rule book around? Or do you only have one person that has a laptop and it's electronic and you're having to pass a laptop around?
Sure.
Do you have enough dice? Do people always forget which of their D6s is the stunt die? Is your table space too small? Are you trying to cram a whole bunch of miniatures on it and there isn't room for it? Just look at what are the things that the physical reality of your gaming space, or if it's online, right? What online tools are you using? What if you've got a virtual tabletop or you're just doing it over Discord or Zoom or Skype, what is there that is the tools you use, and in what way does that environment seem to be failing to support the things that you want to do as part of your game experience?
I love that. And failing to support.
I'd love for us to be able to talk about, people to bring to us issues and say, here's the problem. Is we've got 7 players and we've got a single coffee table that's 2 feet wide and 1 foot long, and that's it.
Help me fix it, Owen. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so we can work on addressing some specific issues. That's
fantastic. I love that, and I think it also opens up the door for, it's not as, maybe you've got everything set up perfectly, but there's, a kind of a tone or a you're not able to immerse yourself in this stuff because of something, that is more about how people comport themselves or something like that. But I have a question for you, Owen. When it comes to, there was a phrase, and I believe that we are stealing it from Kenson, but it's the idea of like, it's like when you're shooting a movie and there's like that feeling, like that space that acting happens. What is that called? Like the table
feel?
Table feel. Yeah, I like that. So solutions to helping people get their table feel on point, and making sure that everybody's comfortable and things are functional. Let's see. Slit says, I wonder why TTRPG companies don't sell player packs, which could be 4 to 5 book bulk set of the. Yeah. I mean, I think that there are shades of that. I've seen some shades of that, sampling of that kind of stuff, but it's very interesting. Brian says, crappy broadband is my largest barrier. Any thoughts on that, Owen? What would be your solution?
Well, that depends on why it's a barrier. If crappy broadband is a barrier because they are having trouble with, voice and video and stuff, one of the things that you can look at is, can we take some of the weight off the broadband? Can we decide that we're not going to do video and it's all just going to be audio? Are there any things that you can do by, rather than saying, hey, here's a map, and we're using a virtual tabletop, can you take a picture of a map, put numbers down one side and letters across the other, and email it to everyone so they all have their own copy of the map. And you can say, hey, I'm moving from B4 to C16. And okay, I will move that on my computer screen without having to send that data in any way, without us all looking at it. And yeah, then you don't get things like real-time lighting effects and some of the other cool virtual tabletop stuff. But when I played World of Warcraft a lot, my machine was never up to the specs for World of Warcraft, ever. And so I was always doing things like, turn off shadows, turn off reactive sounds, turn off the echo for Death Knights. And then one of the things I learned was I turned off ground effects. And one of the ground effects in World of Warcraft is, where's the great big shadow that shows you where the giant rock is about to land on you, or that the ground is on fire.
Yeah.
Or that was a pain point for me, that I had to figure out what can I shut off that it just doesn't look and sound as good, and what is actually impacting the play experience.
Yeah, I like that. That is that's great stuff. And getting creative is what this is all about. We are quickly approaching the end of the program. I'm liking the direction of this. I think that I'm with Ren. Ren says that I think that is an excellent topic, and I look forward to it, as do I. I look forward to being the dum-dum that doesn't know what you're saying, because that's just what I do, and that's how I live my life. Owen, it's
called Fish Out of Water, and it's a crucial part of a good show.
That is. I think that we are, maybe we're the odd couple. Maybe that's what our trope is. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. It seems to fit. I want to ask you, what's going on outside of Green Ronin stuff? Anything that you want to tout or share or...
So the past couple weeks, I have been experimenting with doing expanded blog posts on my Patreon. So each week, my blog, OwenKCStephens.com, has at least one post which has a extended version just for my patrons. So the people that are actually directly paying me money get some additional content. The extended version this week was the performative end of being a creator, where I discussed the fact that as a tabletop RPG creator, there are performative elements that are necessary for my job, things like doing podcasts, but also, having an online persona and trying to be interactive in social media.
All the costumes.
Well, I mean, I've told people I cosplay an extrovert at conventions. Right. That's what I do. I'm not an extrovert, but over more than 20 years, I have learned that looking and sounding like an introvert doesn't get the interaction that people want, right? I have been on panels where there was someone who never said anything unless someone directly asked them a question. And some of those people on those panels are brilliant people with lots to offer, but because they're introverts, you got to draw it out of them.
Right.
And if they are a famous enough introvert, someone will think to do that, but I am not that famous introvert.
What are you talking about? We do this all the time. You're a very famous introvert.
I am a small fish in a tiny pond. So there is a very performative element to trying to be visible and get people to see your stuff and buy your stuff over the baseline. And so I talk about that at some length at my blog, but there's an additional 4 or 5 paragraphs of content at my Patreon to encourage people to spend $3 a month or more if they feel like it.
So if we go to your blog, that is...
The blog is OwenKCStephens.com, or you can go straight to the Patreon, which is patreon.com/Owen KC Stephens.
Nice. You will remember that because you heard about it on ThursdAGE with Owen KC Stephens, actually from Owen KC Stephens. So if you get twisted on that, just come back to the live stream and read the name and go back and try it again. I am happy to report that this episode, we both got 300 experience points. We have leveled up.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I didn't know that's what we were doing, but I
think that means we get to pick a new specialization now.
I think that's amazing. You know what our specialization should be?
What should our specialization be?
Getting on a podcast.
See, I was going to suggest Twitch.
Oh, yeah, well... Twitch works, sometimes it doesn't, but I feel real good about cracking the code on that next. But hey, folks, I know that we have a lot of really talented people that participate and hang out with us, publishers in their own right, people who are coordinating, podcasts, people that are doing a lot of fun, unique things, and we want to hear more about that, and we want to connect with you. And I know that some of you have written and have shared, hey, I'd love to, get Owen on a podcast, and let's take the next step, and let's if there's something that you're working on and you want to, whether it's a podcast or an actual play, and you want to have a visiting Owen, everybody wants a visiting Owen, within reason, of course. Owen's a very, very important man with very, very important things to do, and there are plenty of rules. We got to get the green room's got to be perfect. His dressing room it's got to be green M&Ms or nothing, Thin Mints,
I gotta say, in 2014, I was one of the gaming guests at Comic Palooza down in Texas, and that was, I think, the second, maybe third year that Comic Palooza had happened. And Comic Palooza had not yet figured out that gaming guests were used to a lower standard than other guests. So we had access to the same green room space as James Marsters and Trisha Helfer and three people who'd played Doctor Who. And the green room had, a fully stocked refrigerator and snack bars, and 3 times a day they brought in professional chefs to cook meals to order for people. And when I showed up, they had asked me what my favorite cocktail was, and I had said a screwdriver. So when I showed up, they had a bottle of vodka and a bottle of orange juice for my hotel room. I'm given to understand that in years since, they've realized that they don't have to treat everyone like the same level of mega guest. But I have experienced that once. It was very, very, very nice. But I'm well aware that normally I'm lucky if I get half a Snickers bars and some warm water.
I'm telling you, this man is a celebrity, and you will treat him as such. Do not look him in the eye. Do not ask for an autograph unless you've got a $10 bill, and then add another $10 bill, and then maybe another one, and pay for it. And there's a whole list. I'll get it over to you. But for instance,
that's a lie. If you ever see me, I'm happy to sign anything you've got.
Just slip him a $5. Owen KC Stephens, what a joy, always a blast. I want to thank everybody in chat. You are all very, very entertaining. You make Thursdays so much fun, and I always leave this a little lighter, a little more jazzed, and a little more relieved that especially if that particular episode worked with audio from beginning to end. And look at us go! You can hear us all the way. I think that we've got a good plan coming up for some really great stuff, and I want you folks who are sitting on some projects or sitting on some stuff. We were even talking about maybe opening up a little secret space for community to come in and hang out with us, and maybe we would give you some airtime to talk about some stuff. Do a little 15-minute sort of segment on what in the ThursdAGE community, and highlight some of your stuff. So we will most certainly take care of that. And Derek Barnett says, one of these days I'll get Owen's autograph on my Races of Renown. Dreams come true. They do, Derek. They do. Don't forget that 10. I'm telling you. All right, my friend Owen, thanks again. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your week. We will see you. Of course, you're going to be coming back for Mutants and Masterminds Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific in these same spaces. So come hang out, watch us on the YouTubes, watch us on Facebook. And if you haven't had a chance, get over to the YouTube and subscribe. And then get over, we're almost at 9,000 or 10,000. We are getting up there on Facebook, and I'm really looking forward to cracking that 10,000. So get over there and like us, and if create 20,000 more accounts and help us out. Give us 20,000 likes. And with that, I will say adieu. Have a wonderful Troy the Disembodied Bouncer. Exactly. It does sort of, the way I'm discussing this, it does sort of sound like I'm running a strip club. With an Owen. So that's not what we're doing, and how dare you. Owen, I'm going to let you.
I'm still threatening to start my own OnlyFans page. So
Go do it. Let's do that. All right, we'll work on that idea, and between now and the next ThursdAGE, you will hear about Owen's OnlyFans. OwenlyFans. I like it. I'm going to stop before somebody comes in and takes my internet away. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.